Hi guys, it's me again. Today we're going to talk about the video game layoffs. Xbox did over 3,000 layoffs yesterday, and I think this is the beginning of the end. And really, if you look at especially their staffing before COVID and now, it's pretty obvious that they kind of overhired. But at the same time, I think that we are seeing a very big recalibration. I think that for anybody who had a brain or a set of eyes, this was kind of obvious that it was happening. You can't have a $100 million studio that releases a video game and the game gets 3,000 concurrent players. It's just really not. You're just not making enough money there, right? It's just that simple. So this is what's happened, I think, for quite a while. And people have been trying to, I guess, warn people, hey, look, this isn't working. These games aren't working. And today I just woke up. I didn't stream today because I wanted to lay in bed all day. But I was laying in bed and I was reading Twitter. That's usually what I do for stream research. And I saw that there's another company, id Software. I think it's ID or id. I'm not sure how it's pronounced. But it's the people that made Doom the Dark Ages. Also, they're doing huge layoffs. And people are like, oh my god, this is such a shock. I said, really? Are you sure it's a shock to you? Look at the amount, I bet the pre-orders for the expansion for the game that come out today, nobody gives a shit. The pre-orders are probably, really low. And then the game launched to, a 30,000 player audience on Steam. And I know somebody's going to say, oh, but Game Pass, oh, you could play it on Game Pass. Yeah, you could play Expedition 33 and Stalker 2 on Game Pass, too. It doesn't mean that a lot of people didn't still buy it on the fucking PC. So, the reality is on Steam, I mean to say. So the reality is that, yes, I do think this is a good metric. And, every time that there's one of these games that comes out and they're like, oh, well, no, this isn't a good way to look at it or whatever, it just seems to be proven right sooner or later, but one way or another, the outcome is the same. So where does this really lead us? Where are we going? Where is the video game industry going? I want to talk about it on a macro level, on an economic level, for marketing, on mid-level games, small games, etc., right? So I think that basically, if you want to take big picture, and then we can kind of distill down from that, the first thing that I think that a lot of these companies are trying to do is they're trying to become platforms. They don't necessarily want to be, I'm talking about Sony and Xbox primarily, and there's also going to be large PC companies that are going to be doing things that are similar to this, such as Epic Games with Fortnite. What they're really trying to do is they're trying to capitalize on being an ecosystem that people use their software and their hardware ecosystems in order to enable them to take a piece out of the pie of Fortnite transaction fees, right? And same as Roblox or anything else. Why would they want to go and do all this other crazy, put all this work into everything whenever all they need to do is just make something that people can buy and then they can coast off of Genshin Impact waifu sales forever. So that's, I think, the direction that they're trying to go in, and that's the reason why they're trying to move all of these studios off of being first platform and into being third platform. It's because basically now, if you're the captain, you've got to go down with your ship. And if it sure seems like the way that things are going, there's a lot of sinking ships. I mean, I saw some of these games. There was this one game, they canceled the studio, right? Or they had it go independent. Okay, this is okay, we're gonna send you out on a life raft into the North Sea. And no, we're not killing you. You can go out there. I want you to go to the North Pole and meet Santa Claus. I wonder what's going to happen, right? And so this company, they made a video game, and it was about making pottery, and it was like a Mario Party pottery. It was the most Reddit fucking game I've ever heard of in my life. And I remember watching it and thinking to myself, does anybody give a fuck about this? And I looked at the Steam chart, and it sure seems like they didn't. There's 200 people that played the game. So how is it that you can make a video game that, if you were to make a Venn diagram between people that obsessively collect Funko Pops and people that like this video game, you'd have a circle, and you think this is going to massively sell and it's going to keep your studio afloat? And I understand that people think that, and there's a lot of blame. I think this is unfair. There's a lot of blame towards Phil Spencer. Phil Spencer used to be the guy in charge of Xbox. Well, guess what? I'm sure Phil Spencer didn't tell them, no, guys, it's great for you to make $3 million whenever you spend $50 million. Oh no, there are no performance expectations. We want you to make video games that nobody likes. This is what we want. We want you to take your remember your 6th grade theater project idea? Well, we want you to make that a video game. I don't think Phil Spencer was saying that, but apparently that's what a lot of these companies were hearing. And so you have all these companies that are making these games for nobody. Nobody gives a shit. And then now you have, and I think that there is a lot of institutional ideological capture. I talk about this a lot, and that's because I think it's a much bigger threat and a much bigger problem than you guys might imagine. So this is a good example, right? So you have these video game companies that are talking about, oh, well, we won these awards. Well, then you're winning the awards from the people that are benefiting from the access journalism into your fucking video games, and then they give it positive reviews, and then after that, you give them credibility, and then you give them, like, privileges, and then they give your video game award. And so it's like the most embarrassing, hipster, liberal version of the human centipede that you can ever... Yeah, it's the human centipede, but it's rainbow colored, okay? So, guess what? I don't think a lot of people like that. You have, effectively, capitalism that's been replaced by credentialism. And the problem is the credentials are fake, but the numbers, the money is still real. And that's the problem, is that you can give out as many special awards, and you have these... I read this, I'm going to get triggered, is that there is an IGN article talking about, oh my God, oh no, these video games that won all these awards. They won all the awards and they're losing. Yes, because nobody gives a fuck what the awards are. You invented these awards, you invented criteria, you invented these credentials, and you built an entire ecosystem, and it's nothing. It doesn't exist. It doesn't matter. But these people think that they can build basically a, elaborate tapestry of fake credentials that they can insulate themselves from the effects of the accountability of capitalism. That's what's happening. And now the chickens have come home to roost. And it's a pecking party. And I'm happy to see it. I'm very happy to see it. I'm so glad all these nasty, retarded, useless, shitty fucking devs. And also, by the way, I understand people get sometimes triggered whenever I say stuff like that. They say, well, you can't say that because there's a lot of actually good devs and they're following bad decisions. I think that you're definitely right to some extent, but I don't think you're right to as big of an extent as you think you are. I think that just like in every other job, in every other place, there are the 80-20 Pareto principle, where 20% of people do 80% of the work. So when 80% of the people get fired, usually not a lot changes. So that's what I think happened with Twitter, and I think that's what's going to happen with a lot of these companies too, is that you've had these massive overhiring pushes. You've had every single developer and every single game designer that now thinks that they are the next misunderstood, troubled artist, Neil Druckmann, which is really just a pale imitation of Hideo Kojima, right? The GOAT. And so, you have these people that think that they're actually, one step away from directing a Netflix series that has 8 seasons like Game of Thrones. These pathetic, failed theater kids is basically what I'm trying to say. And they're insufferable. The stories are insufferable. And the reason why they're so insufferable is because their characters are self-inserts and nobody likes them. That's the reason why. That's the same reason why they're so defensive over the characters. It's because, oh, you hate our characters. Well, wait a minute. I based this character on myself. I'm sorry, but I play video games to get away from people like Tosh and Dragon Age. I don't want to have to, that's the reason why I'm playing video games. I have to deal with people like you in real life. I go to the grocery store, I see somebody like that, right? And it's like, oh no, right? You've got to deal with this person or listen to them or something like that. And so this is the exact, this is supposed to be an escape. This is supposed to be your willing suspense of disbelief, right? You want to leave, you want to have immersion, you want to be immersed in another world. Whenever you play these video games and you see these very clearly, I think, ideologically driven decisions that they make, what you see happening is that, it's it destroys that willing suspension of disbelief, because you're looking at it and you see it right then at that moment, and you're like, wait a minute, I'm actually just playing something that's a piece of propaganda. This is in the game because of the artist's viewpoint or something like that, and it doesn't really fit inside of the story. in an organic way. And I think that's one of the things that people are kind of getting tired of, but I actually don't think that that's the main picture. I think the reality is that, Asha Sharma, who's the new head of Xbox, who I think she's great. I do. I think she's amazing. She said that there was 14 different layers of management inside of Xbox in order to make a decision. And I want to contextualize this, okay? And I want to contextualize it. Let's go back to 1999. Very good year. The year that Office Space came out. So inside of that movie that was supposed to be a parody of corporate office American culture, the amount of bosses that the guy had to turn in his TPS reports was 7 or 8. And so now Xbox, like 25, 27 years later, they are now twice as ridiculous as a hyperbole in 1999. That's how bad it is, okay? So it's massive overstaffing, total bureaucratic capture. Everybody is completely, afraid of doing anything. You have accountability diffusion. So, well, it's nobody's fault because it's everybody's fault. Well, you know what the problem with that is? When that happens enough times, I guess everybody has to get fired. And you know what? Not a moment too soon. Because the fact is that if this one thing that's taught us anything, is that a lot of these developers, like smaller teams, smaller devs, they can really cook. They can make really good games now. And they don't need the same level of tools. They don't need a Hollywood actor that has a box around him, pretending to be a Funko Pop cube. Whoa, look at me, I'm a Jello cube. Like, this is the kind of shit that nobody fucking needs. Nobody needs it. And Xbox is realizing that nobody wants it either. And so anyway, what's happened, I think, is that you've had this institutional bloat, this attempt at trying to make the video game industry mirror the movies and then music and I think also TV industry. And the reason why I think this is happening, maybe I'm being such an asshole. Well, actually, I know I am. This has been 12 minutes of me being an asshole so far. And so, but I think that all of these people that are working at these companies want to be celebrities. I think that they want to be seen as Christopher Nolan, like Guillermo del Toro, right? These visionary directors, these visionary writers, these people that are involved, because there's a mystique around Hollywood. There's a mystique around, acting and music and these record companies, right? And they want to be part of that, but they're just a bunch of fucking nerds. They're just a bunch of fucking nerds, and their theater projects weren't even good enough to get them accepted into high school, into a college, right? And so now they have their second chance, and they're making a video game, and unfortunately, that video game is called Mixtape. And so the problem is that you have a lot of these people that are making games that nobody is interested in for audiences that don't exist. And on top of that, you have the companies that are buying them have so many levels of bureaucratic overhead that there's no way that they can possibly function to make enough money unless they make their target audience everybody. Oh, well, if we make as many copies as we sell as many copies as Fortnite does, or I guess Fortnite's free, you could use any Black Myth Wukong, 20 million copies. Sure, well, if every single person in China buys my bullshit, I'm going to be a billionaire. But I don't think they're going to buy it. So the problem is that you effectively make the amount of mouths you have to feed so big that you have a net that you need to use that's so wide that the fish slip through the holes. That's what's happened, and you pull it up. Where's all the fish? Wait, you're telling me there's only 3,190 concurrent fish? I think we're gonna starve. And you know what? They sure are. And as I said, deserved. Completely fucking deserved. You made garbage. You created institutional, ideological capture. You allowed that to be part of your actual company, identity. You didn't listen to the players. You have people that are openly antagonistic towards their audiences on Twitter. I mean, you just basically did everything wrong. And again, you can do everything wrong as long as the games are good. But the problem is that there is no longer the idea of the high quality, small slice, great like game that knows its audience. You know, I'm thinking of games like, for example, Space Marine 2, okay? Something like that. It's a very, very simple game. It has a very, very defined audience. That was me, by the way. Amazing game. I can't wait to play the third one. But on top of that, you have other games that just really don't hit that mark. And they're trying to appeal to everybody. They're trying to be for everyone. Like Helldivers is another great example where it's like they had an ideal, they had a vision, they executed the ideal, they executed the vision. Now, you can be unhappy about the way that they've managed the live service. You can be unhappy about the PlayStation thing. I know I was. But fundamentally, I think that the real problem with all this is that there is a disconnect between the players and the developers, and the developers are no longer part of the same class that the players are. And more importantly, neither is the executive team. And I want to say one of the silver linings for any of the people that are like very pro-dev on this is that if you look at the amount of people that have been fired inside of Xbox and you look at the positions that were let go, there were a lot of chiefs that got let go. And I think that's a really great thing. We need a lot less chiefs. There are too many decision makers, and also, like, again, if you're a captain's supposed to go down with his ship, right? So if you're the one that makes the call, you need to be the one that's falling on your sword. That's the way I see it. And hey, Xbox is giving you a little push, but whatever it takes to get there, I'm happy about it. So I hope that this is the new direction of these studios. I think that, you know, again, let natural selection take its course. Have the developers that are actually really great, that are well connected, that know how to make a good game. I'm sure they'll probably find jobs. It's sad that they lost their job. It sucks. But at the end of the day, I think this happens in every industry, especially as a recalibration from such a large, economic boom, such as COVID. Is that I think that these recalibrations happen regularly, whether it's because of new technology, new research, or some other type of change in consumer habits. Whatever the reason is, this is not uncommon. And it's not a crime against humanity that a video game studio has layoffs. I hate how, every other company in the world has layoffs all the time. John Deere has layoffs constantly. Walmart has layoffs all the time. I went to Panda Express, and they have an AI doing the fucking the drive-through, right? Which is, I've always thought that's a good thing, because you go to Panda Express, it's literally double fake advertising. They don't sell pandas, and it's never fast. But the point is that that's one person's job that doesn't exist anymore, and it's going to keep happening. And so when I see this happen with video game development, I think to myself, well, it's more of the same. This is what's going to happen. It's not anything unique. I think obviously it sucks if people lose their jobs, but you've got to expect it, especially when you make something that ultimately doesn't make money. So I think we can expect to see a lot more of this. I'm curious to hear what you guys think about it. And I think at the end of the day, in the same way that, when a whale dies in the ocean, there's something that's called a whale fell, and it creates an entire ecology around the dead whale, and other life and other types of life forms emerge from it, and that is the circle of life. And I just hope that with some of these big companies, you will have some whale fells, and out of that we'll get a couple more Expedition 33s, because those people came straight out of Ubisoft. So I'm really, really hoping that's what happens, and I wanted to make a video and talk about it, because I really think that it's very odd. It's like the, like the Fibonacci spiral, right? It's weird how, things in nature also apply to human psychology, human behavior, human, economics and everything, in the same way that spiral applies to more and more and more things, doesn't it? And so the more things change, the more they stay the same. I'm curious to hear what you guys' thoughts are on all this topic, and kind of what you guys think, but I think this is a really great direction for the video game industry to go in, and I think that hopefully now we can have a calibration towards smaller teams, more defined visions, and also things that are not insulated by PR or by any type of credentialism. So anyway, before I kind of end the video 4 more times by talking about something else that I ADHD myself into, thank you guys all so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you again in the next one. Peace.